Welcome to after the discussion for the chapter 10.07. The host for today is Bookcase, and be the helping co-host for today.
Many co-hosts today, and I still
Yeah.
see people joining. So let's just get started with general opinions on the chapter. People want to start writing for the ones that don't want to talk, and then we can take turns with people who do want to talk. I will give my general impressions while people are getting ready for that. And first of all, this was wonderful. There was so much lore. I was so happy to see that we now have a crocodile beastkin, which I'm sure will make my fellow mod Trenchy very happy that we have crocodile people in the story now. And then just so much stuff with Nears, the history of the Forgotten Wing Company and where they came from, like finally some little pieces of tidbits of the Labyrinth of Souls. I mean, we got Springwater, we got one of Syria's relatives, or at least somebody from her village that she probably knew, that Nears knew. Oh, just so much. So exciting. And that's just the first like quarter of the chapter. And then there's the marching of the armies. There was the giant meetup with the Three Stooges. I guess technically not giants, Cyclops and the War Walkers, the Three Stooges, which was beautiful and hilarious and had me laughing out loud many times. And I won't even touch on the stuff at the end of the chapter because basically everything was Aaron in the last half of the chapter, and then obviously the finale of the chapter with Ryoka arriving at Nier's castle is going to be a hot topic for discussion for the rest of the day. So, with that said, what do we have? It looks like, well, Eteron tagged Surbear, but I'm assuming Eteron wants to speak now about
Oh,
general
yes.
opinions.
I think that was an amazing chapter. Easily 8.5 out of 10. Even though Aaron is now a bit of an edgelord, we still got that TWI humor that just makes me laugh out loud so many times. Ryoka casually getting kicked off the tower was just amazing. Finally, characters are meeting that we have been waiting for so long, and I don't even know where to start. I'm just a bit sad, also, to be honest, because Erin right now is like more. After she died, she's just gloomy and serious, and there was one sentence that Lionette said, "Do you have become the consequences?" That kind of perfectly sums everything up that is just going on with Erin right now. She really has become the consequences, or they found her, and she is just on uh on danger mode. She basically told all of her enemies, "Fuck off, come and get me." And yeah, it was amazing and a bit sad. I want my old Erin back. The girl who danced Gangnam Style with Intinium. But that Erin is a bit gone right now.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's the kick was possibly the funniest thing in the chapter, which is a high point of comparison because the Three Stooges was also just excellent.
True.
And next up, we have Mr. Europe.
Yeah, I was really liked the chapter. I was just talking about how uh, it should be time for a Aaron chapter soon, and yeah, it's really interesting to see how she's obviously changed and how she's taking things super duper seriously for very obvious reasons. I think that it would be nice to have a bit more insight into her head than we got, but obviously that's coming and it's part of the story, but I want it now. Yeah, really, I was getting very disappointed with how the meeting wasn't going to happen this chapter. Like, it was, the more I read, like, oh no, we're getting to the end of the chapter, the meeting's not coming. And then then Ryoka flies in and gets kicked off a wall, and just everything's right in the world. It's fine. I can wait until later to see the meeting.
Yeah, definitely. The meeting is going to be so good. And I mean, it was even the chapter password, auspicious meetings. And these are really just the introductions that we had so far. And next we have Quilly Man.
Yeah, enjoyable pair of chapters. I read them slightly back to back. Very enjoyable. I'm expecting that we're going to see legendary quests to Troy Rochelle soon. That's my call. Is probably in a not too distant future. That's what Paxer is talking about at the end. Aaron's hatred. I think it's Rochelle. I can't see anything else it could be. So I think we're going to see that fairly shortly.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't looked at stream spoilers yet, so I don't know what's coming up next, but I'm very curious to see if we get another chapter of this or if it's going in a different direction. And Sir Bear.
I like the chapter. It felt a bit way better with even than the previous one. It feel like we got more stuff, more development. We're almost at the climax of nearing and Eren finally mating for once, despite despite all the curse and shenanigans that stopped them from mating previously. Yeah, obviously the general and his in the tree wall worker. Oh my god, they're wonderful, really. There was some probably some of the best guy, probably the best character in the chapter. It was great. It was fun. To, to, to deal with Paxer was really cool. Also, was about that how Paxer is out of her out or power level, let's say. She's not used to dealing with people, to doing that sort of stuff. She didn't have that really much thing to performance. It was great to give her a dose of reality. Yeah, like we all said, the chapter was a 9 out of 10 for me, at least.
Yes, absolutely. At least a 9 out of 10 chapter. All right, so next I'm going to read the comment from Kynias. If anyone else has any general impressions and they want to say them or write them, now's the time to do it. So next up we have Kynias, who said, "This is a great chapter, a lot of different things happening, a lot of fun, many things happening with Eren. We will have to see where everything goes, and I also think that all the meetings between In People and the United Nations were fun, even if forgotten with everything else happening." And yeah, definitely for sure. It was anytime the theater gets used to have multiple conversations at once is super fun, but it's also like we know we're missing stuff because Pirate will only show us so much of that. So definitely more to come from that interaction. And Lynette.
Okay. So, hi. I have thoughts about the comparisons now between everything that Niers has gone through in his life and what it has turned him into. I thought it was interesting to see the 4 different aspects of himself that he lets out. There were phrases like, the Titan does this, or Niers said that, and those are 2 different people. And then we turn around and we see Eren kind of going through similar things where she's not really acting like an innkeeper right now. She's not trying to stop and peek into Payeth's cultural hall and learn about their lifestyle, and she's on the move, she's on the go, she doesn't have time to sit and do innkeepery things, and that's changing her, it looks like. This is a very interesting comparison. I'm not entirely certain I like this comparison, but yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to see how Niers thinks of himself. He talked about himself as the strategist, the Titan, but also as a lord, just ruling over the people in his area, and then also as himself as a person, for what's left of that for him from what he used to be. And then contrast that with Aaron. I think the last chapter we saw Aaron as a innkeeper a little bit. She did that where she was connecting with people and trying to get information from them. And then this chapter, I would argue, this is Erin as a witch. I mean, she's literally making deals with the devil, and she's going out and kicking ass and taking names and talking to goblins and doing all sorts of witchy things. So it'll be a fun contrast to see which of these two actually talk to each other once they're finally in person. And I see someone typing still. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to say about general impressions, or I'll give. Here we go. Okay, so Geiger says, I think it was interesting. I appreciate those notes. I remember a reaction this week of, if Erin was going to act like this, why did she want to stay an innkeeper? Why argue so much with the GDI, the grand design of, I can't pronounce the name, Escathinus. Escathinus? We'll leave it at that. So, yes, yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I understand why I think I understand why Erin doesn't want to give up innkeeper. It's become core to her identity in the past year and a half. It's what she does. It's how she connected with all these people. And I think she feels like if she gives that up, she's giving up something important about what she's done in her time here.
Uh, since
So,
people, Bouquet, since people are still typing, why don't you grab a question you want to talk about in the
yeah,
document?
so I think we'll, since we kind of moved on to people asking questions at this point, I think we will do that. We'll just move right into the discussion topics and questions we have so far. So the first one.
And
Well, first I'll just read what Geiger gets. So Geiger said in response to that, yeah, I think the final couple paragraphs solved this for me. Her rage is driving her. Yeah, that rage is going to be important in the future for sure. So I'm just going to go in order on the question list because I don't have any preference about which one we do first. So the first question that someone submitted was, Niers loves using the topic of being friendly, being disarming. Oh, sorry, of starting out friendly before disarming the other person with a sudden important topic. How much does that tactic affect his relationships? Will Aaron fall for it? And who will win that betting pool? So this question is talking about a couple different things. So it's talking mostly about how Niers approached that conversation with Ryoka at the end of the chapter, but also it's talking about some of the romantic stuff that was mentioned earlier on and how his troops all have opinions about his future romantic life, if he has one. And looks like we have a Quillman first.
It's interesting because that's basically Erin 101. Her entire character for most of it has been, oh, be really, really friendly and then surprise someone with something really important. In fact, I did find it Niers being amusing with Niers how he was so shocked no one else just nicked Ryoka's windsword, because why wouldn't you? It's not like she's got any big backers or anything. Yeah, the Erin's gonna see right through it. They're gonna see right through each other. It's the
And
same.
what did you think about the betting pool? Do you think anyone's going to win that?
I thought they'd cancelled it because they all agreed it was going to be he was going to be really happy, but then everyone agreed he was going to fail and be depressed. Unless I misread that bit.
Maybe I misread it too. My understanding was that they had just closed the pool, as in they weren't letting more people put in money or make options on it. So I'm assuming it
I
still
took that
exists and
as
somebody's going to win.
stopped taking bets and giving all the money back because everyone was betting on the same thing.
Oh, everyone bet on the same thing, so they just said there's no point in betting. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Yep, that makes
Everyone
sense.
thinks he's going to be happy, but ends up really depressed.
Right. And then next we have Lynette. Lynette said, "Be really friendly and surprise someone with something important, like a frying pan." She does need a new frying pan. I was sad they didn't give her one. It would have gone good with her tactical outfit. And Super Bread Ninja is saying, "Everyone wants to see you happy. The sympathy pool was too full. Everyone put money down for you being happy, then sad. So Diomedes closed the betting. Don't go fly out to meet her." Right. So these are the quotes from the chapter about what they did with the betting pool. Thank you. Thank you for providing that. And Sir Bear has an opinion on the question. Go ahead.
I think I think it was somewhat interesting because we saw it earlier in the chapter with the Selphid. He used the tactic on the Selphid first, and then as the book end, as we say, the chapter end, we saw it in using the tactic again on Ryoka. So it's kind of funny because while even smack you with important stuff suddenly, it even does it usually does it with in a friendly way, with more of a something positive or something fun to do. That while years goes for the jocular with the good whole life, and goes into the art of important topic that's extremely dangerous, like like the sword, like the self-living, and all of that. So that relationship will be interesting because they talked before by chess, writing, message, the theater. So they they interact with each other. They know each other somewhat.
Mm.
I don't. Will Aaron do that first to Nier, or will Nier do that first to Aaron, or will uh, all the other people intervene to stop the problem?
Right.
Because
It,
everybody is helping Nier with the romance stuff.
it'll be interesting to see if he does take any of their advice. It seems like he's taking at least some of it from the people closest to him, but whether or not he has any luck with it is definitely the question to be answered. And Morchan said, "I just hated to see Niers doing the same mistakes he did in the Labyrinth, but he did it anyways." Now, is that in response to this question, or is that in response to what he was having the Selphids do? Because I do remember seeing some people talk about stuff along those lines. Um, and then related to this, the question 5 is about the Windsword. So I'm going to go to question 5 next if people want to take a look at that, but I'm going to keep reading the comments to the first question here. Geiger said, "I think Aaron has played enough chess with Niers to know who he is. There's no way she's 100% fooled by him like Ryoka. However, he is a grandmaster as well. I doubt she'll crush him. IMO, this is why I like their relationship so far. They're very equal in a lot of regards, mirroring each other in certain ways. I wonder if Bird's prophecy of him back in V8 was the most intuitive." And Geiger, I think, is referring to that time when Bird met Niers and talked about what Bird thought would happen once Niers met Aaron, which I don't remember the quote off the top of my head, but I do remember that conversation.
She's everything you're everything she wants and does not want.
Ah, of course Lynette knew exactly what that quote was.
I mean, I'm here, aren't I?
Good point. Good point. And oh, I see Mr. Wiggles. Go ahead.
Hi, Bookcase. So I don't think Niers, um, I don't think it's a good thing necessarily that they took the wind sword. It feels like Niers is gonna make a really bad impression on Ryoka and kind of get in trouble with her. The Freelings definitely cannot copy the wind sword. Like, absolutely cannot do it. There's no way the Freelings are going to be able to copy something like that. Teriarch used like a tier 7 spell just to copy the laptop, and the Freelings just don't have access to that kind of spell. And is it going to be destroyed? No, it's not going to be destroyed. Like, just for purely meta reasons, they're definitely not going to destroy the sword. I don't see that happening ever in this circumstance.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think it'll be interesting to see how he plays it after this, because he did talk about how Ryoka had previously dealt with quote unquote nice guys who didn't take it away from her when they had enough power to do so. And it feels like he's framing that in his professor mindset as him teaching her that she needs to be better at protecting it if she wants to be able to keep something this powerful. But we'll see how that develops going forward. And next we have Mr. Europe.
Yeah, I think it's a mix because on one side, like I think it kind of messes up with his relationship, and like obviously Aaron is going to comment on it and stuff. I don't think Ryoka is going to be that upset about it. Like she's dealt so much with so many absolute jackass nobles. This doesn't feel like the tipping point. Obviously, he's not her favorite person or whatever, but yeah. But the other thing I feel is that the what Nier said about like anyone with half a brain and a real strategist would have done this is definitely 100% true, and it really speaks to how whipped Chaldean is by Eren that he didn't immediately take it from Ryoka. It is like, if you just think about it, someone shows up in like basically the White House with an alien artifact and says, "Oh, I don't really want to lend it out to the scientists temporarily," and how well that would go. Like, of course they're gonna take it. Why hasn't anyone taken it until now? It's absurd.
It's true. Pirate has finally answered the question, why did nobody steal the sword from her before? And the answer was they're all stupider than Niers.
I stand by that Chaldean is whipped by Eren.
That seems valid too. And or he's scared of his grandchild for various other reasons. And next we'll go on to Bleach Soul.
Yeah, uh, I don't. I mean, like it was expected, like he will try something like that, but I didn't think he will actually do it because, Ryoka is very close with Eren, so it will give Eren a much worse impression of him than she probably have. Uh, yeah, he helps her here and there, but I don't believe it's the smart thing to do is to take something one of her closest friends' possession and try to replicate it. It's not like they can anyway. Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, we all know they can't replicate it, but obviously they have to try. And related to this, how much of this do people think is the fact that they found out that Ryoka could see Foliana is the reason why he was so blatant about doing this, instead of doing this completely in stealth without her ever knowing that he had tried to do it? So just something to ponder on. And I'll start reading the comments here. So Quilly Man says Terry is a washed up old dragon, and therefore Freylings are better than a washed up old dragon. And fighting words. Morton says Niers will get in trouble with Eren for stealing the sword. Probably. I mean, at the very least, she might give him a hard time about it, but we'll find out soon. And Bartimaeus says, I doubt the Frailing could copy the Windsword fully. Even Demslist couldn't replicate the power source was a dragon's mana pool. Yeah. And that was a tier 7 spell, and the Frailings were having a hard time doing tier 6 or tier 7 spells regularly in the first place. And Lynette makes a very good point. I still don't think it's stealing when he already stated he'll give it back after they look at it. Geiger says, I think of the mantra, if you want to impress a potential romantic partner, impress their friends. So this may come back to bite him in that way. And then we have Sir Bear.
I think it's links since stealing doesn't matter if it's a loan. You only took it temporarily. It's stealing since you don't have the consent. They took it without real consent, so it's stealing. But more seriously, I think I think you're all saying it in the wrong lens. I think the Freelings can somewhat copy the Windsworn. Maybe not at full efficiency, but they can put it in a they can do a mini version. Because as we know, the Freeling were trying to open the last box. They were trying open the last box layer by layer by layer by layer. And that's how they did scientific discovery, magic discovery. So I think the Freeling could pretty much dismantle the Windsworn somehow in trying to know how it works. They won't use magic, the tier 7 slash tier 8 spell to do it, but they will do that with the end magically. They will disassemble the Windsworn, trying to know how it works and all of that.
Now that's an interesting point because we did see something like that with Luan's cell phone, where they broke off pieces of
Yeah.
it to replicate the materials, and they just wanted to examine it to understand the layout of it, not necessarily to take it apart and put it back together. So yeah,
Obviously, it's a level of higher technology that they won't truly understand, but I think they will try to understand some concepts, some execution, and could do smarter version of the sword. But
and they can certainly offer help with enchanting it, which she probably needs some better enchantments on there.
yeah. Thor's version could be enchantable, unlike the version Ryoka got that burn her alive.
Yeah. And Morton says, also poor Ryoka, she finally opens up a little and lets her paranoia guard down. And as soon as she does, somebody steals her shit and also kicks her in the chest. Well, to be fair, the paranoia got her kicked in the chest. She was always going to get her stuff stolen. Borrowed, maybe, not stealing, but debatable, again. And Mr. Wiggles. And before Mr. Wiggles talks, the next question, we're going to go right back to number 2, which is about Aaron's interview.
All right, so you asked earlier if we thought that this had to do with Ryoka seeing Foliana right away. Is that why Niers decided to steal the sword? And I definitely think no. Like, Niers was planning this from the start. As soon as he met Ryoka, I don't think those two really influenced each other. He was surprised by her being able to see Foliana, but he's heard about that sword for a long time. He's seen it in action multiple times, and he knows that it's not a regular sword from House L, and he really, really wanted to see it from the very start. So I think that was his plan all along, was to get Foliana to, quote unquote, steal it for a little bit.
But do you think he would have done it stealthily if he could have? Or would he have
No.
always been upfront with her about it?
I think he would always have been upfront with her about it because she's such a close friend to Aaron. If she wasn't like an ally of Aaron, he might have gotten Foliana to just take it while she was sleeping or something, and then do something like that. But because she's such a close ally to Aaron, I think that influenced him to just be upfront about it.
Valid.
Anyways, that's all.
Yeah. So the next question for people who haven't read it yet, Aaron just did an interview. What's going on? What's going to be the world's reaction? Is the reporter Salex going to have a class change? And could she have done the interview differently? And before we start answering that question, Sir Bear is gonna follow up on the last one.
One thing I forgot to say is Tyrion technically took the win throne twice. First at the beginning of volume 8, when when Uyaka just got the sword and she was trying to learn the functionality, and that's how they learned that the basic mode of the sword can be defeated by magic. And the second time was in volume 9, when at the event Tyrion was trying the sword. He was trying to learn how would you fight with it, what you will do with it, and all of that. So in a way, Nier is a bit wrong that when people say they took the sword from Ryoko. And I really think if Ryoko had not seen Foriana, Nier would have taken the sword stealthily, because I want to remember one thing. At the big when Ryoko arrived, Foriana was invisible and digging to Ryoka's stuff. At first she took the foot wrap. She was trying, and the moment she was trying to take some potion, Ryoka noticed her, and then later Ryoka had to grab back the foot wrap. So I think Foriana would have taken the sword without Ryoka realizing it at that point. But now, since Ryoka can see Foriana, she was going to do it, obviously, in the face.
Makes sense. And yeah, it's worth remembering that Foliana is one of the highest level rogues in the world, if not the highest level living that we know of. So the fact that she can see through that is kind of scary for stealth in general. And next up, we have Lynette talking about the news.
All right. First off, for those people who don't know or who weren't there, I'd like to tip my hat to Sir Bear, because the only reason we have the reporter's name is because Sir Bear protested during stream chat. Pirate originally wrote it without, as the reporter saying, "Oh, my name's not important," and Sir Bear went, no, that's not how that would go." So congratulations, we got this guy, and he's probably going to level quite a bit because of his persistence in the interview. As far as class change, I don't know about that. Journalist is impressive. I think it might go up from reporter to journalist. That would be nice. Could Aaron have done the interview differently? I don't think so. I think it's important that she portrayed herself as calm and thought about all of the questions before she answered them. I think it's important that she clarified what the questions meant before she answered them. I think the sass at the end was rather fun to read, and yeah, I'm excited to see how this is going to go. I don't think she could have done the interview differently and still had the respect of everybody who was watching it.
Yes, it's very important we got that reporter's name. I agree. I'm glad we got that. And it's always interesting to see how classes interact with fame and acclamation from around the world, and the kind of level up they can get just from being known globally. So this is definitely someone to follow in the future for us as readers. And next we have Bleitzel.
Yeah, I don't look. The people who like Erin still like her, and people who hate Erin still hate her. She didn't change anybody's opinion about the situation. She just said what she wanted to say, and she tried to, tell her, "Hey, he tried to kill my friend, so I killed him." but it's not gonna change like the opinion of Eribeth or anybody who hates her. And people who like her still, hey, say maybe you should have said it more in more like diplomatic way, but they still like her. I mean, she didn't change anybody's opinion. As for the class change, I don't know, and frankly, I don't care.
That's fair too. And yeah, saying she had run out of regrets is a very powerful line. And reiterating that to this interview definitely kind of sets the standard for what's going on next. And next we have a comment from Geiger who said, Aaron's interview was a put my phone down, raise my hands up, a yes moment for me. I thought it was exactly what needed to be said. This is why journalism is great. This is one payoff from the Christmas interview. She thinks goblins and Antinium are people. She doubled down. She's in the right. She's sticking to her principle. She gains nothing from being wishy-washy or backing down. Go, Aaron, go. And then also, Geiger reiterated Sir Bear is right. A journalist, uh, as a journalist, name recognition is important for accountability and trustworthiness. And yes, Alex did say that he was working for Remy Canada. He worked for that particular newspaper, which is run by an earther who has been striving all along to rise the level of journalism across the entire world with everything he works on. And Sir Bear. And then after Sir Bear, we'll go right into question number 3.
And one thing I think the interview was done really well. Erin proved her point. She said why everybody tried to kill her, why she did everything she was doing. It obviously it won't change everybody, but maybe it will change the other people because right now the world didn't know why Aaron Stanley stabbed the Prince of Men. The rest of 200 only see one of the hero being stabbed from behind by Aaron and died, pretty much died from her attack. So maybe it could influence the rest of 300 to stop everybody a bit and put them down in a way because the sleeping giant is waking up, so it could force the other kingdom to react, to do stuff, to either stop everybody or not take a side necessarily. Since Eren has been making friends with other kingdom like Avel, Kalimfer, Dishonest, and what's the kingdom of Lord Bell again? Oh, Nadel. One thing I don't know if it was wish fulfillment or if it felt right. I'm not even sure. I think I would have wanted Eren to drop a quest at the end. Like imagine at the end she dropped the legendary Warshall quest on everyone, and it would have changed, maybe perhaps changed the mind of people because Warshall is slavery. Slavery is pretty much seen as the bad guy by most of the kingdom that are not Chandra or Baleo somewhat. It could maybe have influenced Tyrandia, Israel, some kingdom and Chandra and Baleos. That maybe the blighted kingdom in some way. It could have maybe slow them for some stuff because you don't want really to be on the side of slavery. But
It's an interesting point to bring up the quest again, because she definitely has a few high-level quest slots open that she should think about using sometime soon. But whether or not she wants to make it even more clear who should be on her side vis-a-vis slavery specifically and Rochelle is, I wonder if it's a matter of timing and she has a plan for when to do it, or if it's just a matter of maybe there's something else she needs to use it for even more than that quest that we just don't know about. So it's definitely something to consider as we go forward.
and also in some way it could put her friend the Hint family in danger because right now, as far as even know, as far as we the reader know, the Inn is not getting attacked. The Inn is somewhat left in peace alone. So with the quest, the end could be destroy, attack, and it could reveal some stuff that maybe the Lion doesn't want to be public, like the box and the gold and all of that.
Yeah, the box is a big deal, and Erin is definitely doing her best to keep all the attention off the inn itself at this time, and we'll see
Yes.
how long she's successful in doing that. And so, all right, so going on to the next question. The next question is about the very beginning of the chapter. So it's about Niers and the world's founding group of named rank adventurers and the army that they went into the Labyrinth of Souls with. A book was written. There was 88 copies of it, and Niers bought or acquired every single copy and hid them away in his castle. So, what is he really trying to hide in that book, and why? What is an old one? Are they related to old things? Which is another reference for us going back to 9.23 and the many G's of the Geneva Convention and everything that happened there in the Mind's Fortress. So first up for this question, we have Mr. Europe.
Yes, I think like the first thing with the Jungle Tales was already chasing Nears. They did say that before the world's founding team, the first team they had before most of them died, was like actually took steps against Jungle Tales before that. So Nears had already started attacking them. I think it's very interesting to see like the different perspectives. Obviously, we've always known that not many of the original Forgotten Wing team was still around and like what they'd all gone to do. And it was very interesting to see uh, the perspective of one of them. For me, I just felt like Nears buying all like every copy of the book was just obvious. Don't like they even said, I think, don't give a single inch to them or something like that. I don't remember exactly where it was, but Near specifically said like don't like something about information quarantine. Like don't give any hints to anything they've done. And it was I'm assuming that it wasn't actually said in the text, but you don't want anyone to like with all the people with weird skills around. You don't want to give even a single thing to latch onto. Yeah. Oh, and the old ones are obviously just uh, like it's been said before, and I think lots of people are now quoting different stuff about it. So I'll leave that alone.
Yes, yeah, I'll skim through the quotes. I may not read everything out loud because it's from several chapters, but there are basically all the prior references to old ones in the text people are throwing in the chat here, and I will read through those for us so we can get some background on the old ones. I'll also say with regards to the book, my theory was that Nears believes the book, the interview in particular, gives away a very uh, dangerous look at how he does things and the limits of what he will go to get what he wants. And that in addition to this, now that we have this information about the start of the Forgotten Wing Company, what we don't have that wasn't mentioned here but has been mentioned recently is Nier's involvement with the Lightning Thief and the original acquisition of the eyes and getting him out of Balaros entirely. Because we know he had a role in that as well, and I'm curious where that falls in his personal timeline with regards to the founding of the company and the events in the Labyrinth of Souls. So next, we'll read some of these. So Quillyman says, old ones are just weird shit that turn up and see before 9.23 where the minds went mental and the old ones started to rise. Sir Bear provided a link from chapter 8.55 where there is a reference to the old ones and whether or not they are a generic term for all kinds of things we find buried deep or possibly worse things down there. Superbred Ninja referenced chapter 7.56, where there's a reference to species called old things. and old things appear to be something different from the old ones. However, there hasn't been a lot of clarity on either of those two terms. And then also 9.66, which is another quote about Zanir and the summoning of old ones and old things, and how some of the other worlds may have fell to them, other realities may have fallen to these kind of wriggling creatures on the edges of reality. And then Lynette says it's very hard to hire mercenaries when they know exactly how badly they might get treated by you. ... So just don't tell them. And Bleach Soul. You're muted if you were trying to talk.
Yes. With regards to Niers and his like his buddies and stuff, I think it's interesting. They got like a huge party to get into the dungeon, and only 6 like got out. And it's very interesting to, I mean, from like world building perspective and character perspective, to see what happened actually there, and how come like the other name ranked team did not finish the dungeon like Niers did. Uh, I mean, it says a lot about Niers' abilities and his team's abilities, uh, to get over the challenges. But I actually would like to know what actually there is inside, and maybe we can get more view of Niers, of how his character has been and how he did change after the dungeon. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I would love to know more about the dungeon. And I'm also going to throw the next question in the chat because it's related to the talk about the old ones and old things. Is the question about Selphids are doing their own stuff, possibly outside of the mind's influence. Do we think it's the aftermath of the V9 stuff with Geneva? And do we think it will work? And then we'll go back to Sir Bear.
I think it's interesting that Nier bought the book and then really and tried to add some stuff in the interview with the Selphid was trying to censor himself with the whole thing with the old one and all of that. He was trying to hide the fact that they fought on old one. The Hydra was probably corrupted by an as we learn later. The Hydra that killed I think the elf was killed by an Hydra that probably was corrupted by an old one, and all of that. It was like uh, it was pretty scary, and we don't know if the dungeon is fully clear. Maybe the old one is still there. We don't know. I think
Yeah. They,
I
they,
think
they may not prove it
that's
out.
the scary part, that if the rest of the world learn that there's an old one there, and since the dungeon is technically owned by the Forgotten Wind Company, the rest of the world will go, hey, near open the access for all the nation to clear that stuff and give us all the reward and all of the dangerous possible knowledge, because I think it's suspected that the Labyrinth of Soul was an old dungeon that the new home and all of the other species built to defeat the god. So
Yeah, we do know that it was the elves, the ancestors' dungeon, and it's always been my assumption, based on what happened at the end of Volume 8, that that dungeon or the area around the dungeon is where all of the elf souls that were in the Deadlands were hiding. Like they were hiding in that same location in the Deadlands, and that's where they were waiting for the battle at the end of Volume 8 that happened. Because it seemed implied by the name of the dungeon, but it is just a correlation
and,
but not causation.
and the fact that Foriana got a class that all learn to strike souls in some way.
Yes, yeah, a soul themed class, which is it's very interesting the stuff the souls can do with classes in particular. Uh, I'm going to read this comment from Geiger. It's actually going back to the last question. So it says, feel free. No, I'm not going to ignore it. I just wanted to toss it out there. Every chapter, more or less, in V10 has had a human visibly remembering Eren stabbing the Prince of Man before shuddering. This seems like a remnant of creepy mind control skill. I wonder if that's setting up for a payout that not only deals with that, but with Rochelle and the BK using their global propaganda skills. Oh, interesting. So Geiger is suggesting possibly that some type of skill that the King of Men in Erebasi has is being used to kind of create this worldwide negative opinion, presumably specifically for humans, of what happened for everyone who saw Eren stabbing Prince Iridoran. That would be interesting, and it would be very scary if their king happened to have some kind of global propaganda skill like that, similar to what we've seen other not so nice kingdoms use. And next we have Lynette.
Okay, the question that you had just asked were about the Selphids doing their own stuff outside of the mind's influence.
Yes.
We don't get told if that's true, actually, because
Yes.
Niers doesn't know if the mines have ordered the mass resignation. He's making assumptions, but he admits himself that he doesn't know if this is them going against the mines or if the mines have told them to do that.
And he
It,
specifically said he didn't want to know. He said,
he
don't tell me.
Yeah, don't tell me, don't lie to me. Let's not go any of that. Is it an aftermath of the Volume 9 stuff with Geneva, or will it work well? The Geneva aspect, I think, is really important to pay attention to because, honestly, if you think about it, whether or not Niers actually shot himself in the foot with the sword shenanigans that he did at the end of the chapter, whether or not the Freylings learn anything at all from studying the sword, even if they don't manage to turn it on, none of that is going to save the world, I think. This is my opinion. The sword doesn't matter. What will matter is Geneva and all of the teaching and training and talking that she's doing. The scurvy, the database that she's working on, the nutrients and the mind healers, as far as I know. She's trying to send baby formula to the front lines, like what she tried to get the mines to do. What's going to save the world is all of us taking care of each other, and that is more important than anything you can learn from a weapon, in my opinion.
It's true. And it's true that Niers would think of the weapon first, even though he is helping with the medicine. It's interesting to point out that that was his first obvious move, was going for the weapon. And yes, it is time soon for another Geneva Convention chapter. We need to know. We got the one going out to the Airgel Islands. We got the one that's with the Nagas. So, some shit's going down with the creepy eyeball people. There's the other creepy eyeball people. Who knows what they're doing? And then there's everything else in the world that's going on. It's definitely a lot. Sir Bear did provide a quote. So, with the mines gone, there's less of them now. I suppose I got to thinking, with Jungle Tales on the rise, they've never liked us, referring to the Selphid. Maybe we earned what happened there. But some of the mines are calling for help, and my people might need a bigger company than the Bodies of Felden, which is the company of Selphids that we previously knew about. So maybe it's time for a fifth great company to rise up in Valeros, led by the Selphids. That could be contentious. And then Quilliman says, bloody hippie, burn the world down, rage, rage, big heart, which made Lynette laugh. All right, so Sir Bear has a comment, I believe, about the Selphid comment, and then we're going to go on to what's going to be the last question, because it's been about an hour. The last question is going to be all about the deal with the devil. So, Sir Bear, go ahead.
I think the Geneva stuff matter a lot more than we think. I'm not talking about the fact that Lynette mentioned that Geneva is trying to heal people, is trying to help the health of the general world population. I'm talking about something even more dangerous because near Geneva and Beth are two people like the rules with Selphid. And it's somewhat known when you see them, when you talk about them, the Selphid will probably know about it. The Selphid are probably to leave a bit near because they don't want to deal with that thing that are pretty much a rule breaker of the Selphid rules. Geneva got a living Selphid inside of her that trying to help her walk and all of that. Beth is pretty much a clone of a clone of Geneva. Is and as we learned in the previous chapter, Geneva is pretty much joining Nier's company. She's pretty much living with them. She is with that group. She's with that people. So if the other nation learned about all of that stuff, that Geneva got a level 7 inside her, and Beth is a clone of Geneva, they probably don't want to deal with that aftermath when the nuke start dropping from the other kingdom.
Now that is an interesting point. We did see a little bit of Okasha with one of the Genevas, the original, maybe original, and it doesn't seem to be much of a secret that the two of them are sharing a body at this point. So it'll be interesting to see if they are maintaining some level of secrecy with that, or if they're trying to spread the word that it's happening and make it more of a common thing.
Like we straight up guessed that Beth was a Geneva clone. So
Yeah, she seemed to have picked up something real quick, and she doesn't know. Obviously, Ryoka doesn't know any of the details of what happened in Volume 9. So it'll be interesting to see the conversation there, and what those two have to, or three, if you want to call it the convention, have to discuss with each other. So the last question that we're going to talk about today is about the deal with the devil. Paxeri managed to make a deal with Aaron. What's your opinion about it? Is the deal fair enough? Would you have done it? How do you feel about the packed room? If Aaron reveals the dance/summoning ritual, can she increase her own power by increasing Paxeri's power? And then Xander also just threw out a comment, Selphid's against slavery. Yeah, the body snatchers probably don't want slaves because then they're just slaves in a stolen body. Doesn't help. All right, I'm going to let Mr. Europe talk for a minute here. I'm just going to step away for a moment while he's going at it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really fascinating, good scene. Especially, I loved how they both assumed the other one knew more about the space they were in than they themselves knew. And they were really just fumbling around literally in the dark and not really understanding how the whole ritual worked. I found that was very funny, and just their process of making the deal. The whole deal as it stands was really interesting. I think they tried the old typical devil deals and stuff, and obviously that didn't work very well. So but the place they arrived at the end, I think it's going to be very cool to see how it goes forward. How Erin is their only shot right now, even if she doesn't know it, and how they're going to try to get their own secrets out of her, and how it's going to be very cool to see what this actually means, because we didn't get anything concrete. We know that Pexir's authority increases and therefore power, but we don't actually know what that means in pure numbers or anything like that, or what the actual details are. We don't know how Aaron's going to be enhanced by this. Personally, I'm hoping that at some point Aaron bursts out in a war form, just because that would be hilarious to see what people say about it.
That
Do
would
you
be
think
great.
do you think it matters about The fact that Paxir noticed she actually is mortal.
Mortal, like, I mean, it didn't. We knew she was mortal. I don't think that, like, that was a very. I didn't really understand that, I guess.
Lynette, are you referring to the discussion of the fact that she has a mortal soul and that there's something about that mortal soul which is useful and valuable to them as Lucifen?
Yeah, let me see if I can find.
Yeah, if you have a quote for it, that'd be great. I'll read
Yeah.
it if we do. And while we're doing that, so I want to say, Miss Europe, and for anyone who has read or is reading the web series, super supportive. I'm sure all of us exploded when we saw the word authority when discussing power, because certainly authority is a very interesting concept in that story and what it means for how people can interact with the world. And so, even though obviously Pirate's not going to use it in the exact same way, it's definitely fun to start drawing parallels between these two different power systems and what authority could mean and where that could lead us. So next we'll have Blitzel.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I actually, it reminds me a lot. The deal with Baxter reminded me a lot with the deal with the system, where Aaron negotiated with the system to until she got like something. But the thing that I'm not really. I'm actually glad that Aaron asked her what happened after I die, or what happened, and this thing, and what change is gonna happen. But there are still many unknown things, so I wouldn't have done it personally, and I don't think like the box. Aaron doesn't know how. Probably doesn't know how it fully works. Uh, so I'm not sure if it was a good idea to take the deal. Yeah, she might gain power, but at what expense? The thing is, it seems to me like uh, Eren just does some things full, without having the full picture. Yeah, she want to help her friends by getting the magic, by becoming more powerful and stuff, but they are like there have to be like some stipulation to the soul sharing, like like Paxir already can read, can know about what's in Eren's soul. What's next? Can she read her mind or know all of her secrets or something? Something. I mean, the unknown part is bugs me. It bugs me about Eren, like her. Like when she got the box skill from the system, she didn't know what does it do. She doesn't know anything, but she just smiled and said, "Yeah, I will take it." I mean, like, I don't know. It seems like foolish thing to do. I mean, to jump in without knowing the full picture. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, taking a deal with the devil is always going to have consequences, and it's interesting because Eren is so certain that she's okay with whatever the consequences are because it gives her what she wants right now for her next goal. And it'll be interesting to see how far she gets with that power that she has now acquired. So next, I'm just going to read the quote that Sir Bear posted, which is about the mortal stuff for context. So Paxeri said, "So, she's mortal after all. Eren was indeed mortal. Paxeri couldn't read Eren's mind, but some emotions, yes. And what the Lucifin had found, to her surprise, was one emotion above all else in Eren, buried deep, defining the women, which was endless amount of rage." He left that part out of the quote. Nostromo said, "I think it depends on how you look at the deal. If the deal with Paxeri is just a cheap power-up without any downside, then it would be boring. However, if the deal was heavily in Eren's favor so that she took advantage of Paxeri, it could show us more of Eren's new ruthless side. It would also put into question of how far she is now willing to go to achieve her goals. How many is she willing to now use, hurt, and kill? Could be interesting." And I think definitely so. It certainly seemed like the deal was going Aaron's way for the longest time until Paxere seemed to have figured something out and finally realized what the room itself was telling her about how to use the room to offer a fair deal. And next we have Coleman.
Yeah, sort of going back to one of my earlier things about how I'm fairly certain the rage and everything Erin's doing at the moment is building herself up to be able to survive the inevitable onslaught when she brings out the legendary quest to destroy Roshal. I think that's what's the key point of this sort of build up is Erin powering herself up enough and the other people around her, though to a slightly lesser extent, to be able to survive against whatever Roshal brings, because everyone knows that they're dangerous. They've just proven it by kidnapping her in the middle of a war zone. So, see what happens with that.
Yeah, it'll be very curious to see what her first target is. She definitely doesn't have a short list of problems, and the order of operations for how she tackles them is going to be key for what we get to experience next. And then following up with this, we have Mr. Europe, who said, yeah, the raid sing was the notable part of that mortal quote. The thing was just Paxere apparently having some doubts that she was a normal human, which is hilarious. I agree with that. Lynette then followed up with less about the emotions there, but I thought it was interesting that Paxeri thought that Erin might not have been mortal, even after talking to her and seeing and hearing everything she'd done. Would making a deal with an immortal have been different, do you think? And that was a question for Mr. Europe, who said, depending. It depends. They deal in souls, which are immortal anyways. I think it wasn't a major consideration for Paxeri since they didn't have another candidate. I just thought it was a joke. And that's an interesting point about the candidate thing. It makes me wonder if they've actually tested this theory and if they've tried to make deals with other people, and if only they can make deals with Erin because she's already went to them once and did the ritual to start a deal with them. Because I don't think they actually expounded upon that in the chapter, but that does seem to be what's implied. And so it'll be curious to see if other people are allowed to make deals with the Lucifin, since that seems to be up to Erin to choose. And then I think Thurbear has the comment that will probably be the last comment, unless there's anyone else that wants to sum up their thoughts on the chapter.
Obviously, the the mortal immortal stuff is funny because with all the stuff that Erin named, all the insane stuff, it had the theory that she is that she is immortal. You mean to tell me that the innkeeper transformed into a demon for a chess tournament? You mean to tell me that the innkeeper went into the middle of a sea battle, killed a prince of men and one admiral that are extremely high level? You mean to tell me that the innkeeper did all of that stuff? Are you sure that's not a dragon in this guy, an unicorn, or something like that? Like it was a theory that had been mentioned a couple of times that maybe Aaron is a dragon, maybe Aaron is something else, maybe Aaron is not human. So it's a callback to that joke. So I find that funny.
It's a
But
good point. I mean, she's become so powerful that she's reached that level of status in the world where it's very reasonable to question whether or not she's a simple mortal human being anymore. And the answer may be a bit more complicated than a simple yes or no, regardless of her actual mortality and class and etc.
I think the Parkside trying to grab the information from Aaron about the how she did the intro and all of that is the most important. It's the most important stuff because
Yeah,
as we
that's definitely her biggest bargaining chip. If there's ever a third deal with the Lucifin, you have to wonder what she's going to ask for to get them to give them the ritual. Like if there is a price that she'd be willing to accept for it. Because if she goes into that room and says she'll make that deal, then the room will help them figure out exactly what to offer her to actually get the ritual if she was willing to do it.
and there's also the fact that with all that information, the Lucifer can snowball. They can make deal with other people. They can throw Aaron into irrelevancy. They need to deal with Earth, learn all of that stuff, and and to grow more powerful.
And it's
I-
interesting, there was a mention of Rochelle when talking about the Lucifin and trying to get the ritual and obtaining it again. Is apparently they went to them at some point, possibly recently, to see if Rochelle had any knowledge about the ritual.
I think Rochelle knows about the ritual, but because they dealt with the participate against Rochelle and all of that in the recent battle, they don't want
Toy
to.
Man, that's a good point. Yes, it did come up in the epilogue,
Uh,
or the 3 parts of 9.70 where they were
no, and
making deals left and right.
it came up in the slavery chapter when Visucephane saved Aaron. Pax Sewell went like, "Oh, a deal with Lucifer. I'm surprised there are some there or something like that."
Right, right.
I think Rochelle doesn't want to deal with those Lucifers right now because those Lucifers are technically helping Aaron. They don't know it. They don't know the Aaron Council to deal with them. The Lucifer Council they didn't with Aaron. They don't know those Lucifer deal a second deal with Aaron. So I think they're waiting for either Aaron to die or for Lucifer to be replaced. Have a new leader and all of that to maybe
Yeah.
contact them later, or maybe they just don't need them because the Lucifers are extremely weak right now. So weak that their first effort to Aaron was worthless.
Yeah, the
Yeah, pretty
house
much.
of its on its own does seem to be kind of middleweight overall in terms of what they can offer on a worldwide scale because they are pretty small in number and in power level.
And and obviously Aaron made them weaker with the battle where half the Azul died. He replaced their strongest leader. They sent him into exile. But for the deal in itself, personally, I don't think I would have done the deal. I would have probably listened to the offer and then just left the room. While saying no, because it's better to keep a friendly contact than to just keep burning bridge. Especially everybody with everybody on Terrandria doing their stuff, with Ellen Demis being at war with multiple kingdom and all of that. So I think it's
Ah,
better in the way.
and Quillman did find the quote, which is about how Passeral specifically, the Lord of Possession, the half Jinn, or the Jinn, which is a half Jinn, they both sound the same, but they're spelled differently, I promise. Where he offered to make a deal for the knowledge or award that Aaron was offering on an infernal pact, and an infernal pact seems to be what they sealed in the room, based on our understanding of it. So yeah, so that's a good point. So I think that's it. I think that's the chapter discussion, folks. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's my first time hosting this. This is very fun. I'll probably be doing more in the future. So thank you again for joining me, and have a lovely afternoon, or morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world.